Time now to round up some of the biggest headlines of the week, and we begin with this afternoon when parents will meet at Marque High School to find out what's next for the failing district. After years of being rated academically unacceptable, the TEA plans to close the Marque Independent School District. It will be closed down on July 1st unless they successfully appeal. So when is it decided that enough is enough? Can failing districts be turned around, or should the state move more quickly to close those districts? That's our topic this half hour, and we want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also weigh in on Twitter. Use the hashtag Fox26forlife. Joining us live in our newsroom is our Roundup panel, and it is led by our Fox 26 senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico. Chris, these are always really difficult situations, and the school districts that tend to be shut down by the TEA are usually predominantly minority. So what's the answer here?
Well, having worked on several of these and represented North Forest Independent School District and the Beaumont Independent School District last year on matters directly involving the Texas Education Agency, I can tell you there's some things the agency can do to help a district more than they do. The agency will send in monitors and send in conservators to direct the school board and the administration, but I don't think the agency goes nearly enough in changing the model that the districts are using and to ensure good change. And you're absolutely right. Every district in the state of Texas that has been closed has been predominantly African American, except one, which was predominantly Hispanic. And so I think that if the agency is truly about making changes that help the students, they would send in people that could help turn around the educational output and not turn around the administration. Let me introduce our panel. Mustafa Tamiz, our political analyst, Jackie Bally, public policy analyst. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Mustafa, we'll start with you. This will be the third closure in 5 years, as I recall, and another predominantly minority district. What can the Texas Education Agency do as an alternative to closure?
Well, for the first part, I think we have to get back to the basic issues. We're at the bottom of education in terms of graduation rate and also in case of funding. So school districts that are predominantly in underserved areas get hit much harder because of lack of funding than anything else. And then from a leadership standpoint, the state agency doesn't seem to be engaged in trying to lift up school districts that are low performing. What it does is basically rain on them and then continue to put pressure on them, put pressure on their funding, and they inevitably end up failing. One
of the things, Jackie Bally, that we argued in the North Forest appeal was that merging them with the Houston Independent School District is not going to effectuate any change for these students that are living in the North Forest area. And time has said I was right, because the STAR test results now are not any different than they were when North Forest was handling it. And so merging these smaller districts with bigger districts, if that's not the answer, what is?
Well, that may have been the case with North Forest, but there are no statistics or studies that show actually when they do merge what actually happens. And we do need to look into that.
It's only happened
I think Sally,
times.
yeah, 5 times since 1995. Right. I think Sally's correct when she says that this is a difficult situation, is emotional and political. And so the TA, I mean, no one really wants to make this decision. And I think coming in much earlier than at the ending, a lot of these districts, they've shown years of mismanagement or years of having academic or financial failures. So coming in at the last minute and saying you have certain amount of months or you have 1 year to straighten
turn the whole thing around.
I think coming in much earlier, having a benchmarks, setting certain standards, saying you have this standard you have to meet within a certain number of years will help. But we are doing a disservice to our students if we don't intervene and don't come in and try to make a change.
All right, let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay.
There we are.
There we are. You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look at Twitter, guys. Some of the tweets that are coming in. A lot of people are very emotional about this story. This person saying such sad news today about a once great school. She says she's a Lamar Cougar for life. This person says that's just incredible. They're shutting down Marque. Where are those kids going to go to school? And then this person, crazy news about the TEA possibly closing Marque ISD powerhouse football program. That's what a lot of people are talking about, the athletics that comes into play into this. Do you really think that this is a funding issue, guys, or do you think that this is a case of poor leadership?
Well, I think it generally turns out to be a combination of both. Yeah. In the minority school districts, you have several things that come together all at once. You have parents who work 2, 3, 4 jobs, and so they don't have the time to put in with the parenting skills and the homework and doing the work at home that other more affluent families have the ability to do. That's a problem education-wise. Then you have a lack of general funding because in these areas they don't get as much of a tax base as you do in the more affluent areas. And so all of this coming together creates these situations. But this is not about football. It's about education. And I hear that in every district I go into to try to help. They say, we've got such a great football program. Well, this has nothing to do with football and nothing to do with athletics. And Lamarque High School will still have a football team. It's just going to be under another district. And I sound a little angry about that because I just, not everything revolves around football. And we're talking about education here. What happens in this situation, Mustafa, is the district closes and then they merge it with a neighboring district. And so you just take the same facilities, the same kids, and you say to another superintendent, now they're your problem.
So let me look at the problem in a different way. If we're closing down these school districts, Lamarque, because it's failing, who closes down the TEA? Because the Texas education, it's failing. And so who's responsible for that? It's the TEA. Because if we're ranking bottom, if out of all the states, if we're competing with Mississippi as to who's going to be last, then shouldn't somebody shut down the TEA?
Well, that's really a valid point. When they merged North Forest with HISD, one of the points we made, and I'm not picking on HISD, but one of the points we made was they have as many failing schools in HISD as North Forest had. But nobody's picking on a district the size of HISD or Cy-Fair or Dallas. The bigger districts get the pass on the failing grades.
Well, I think we also need to look at rural areas too, because they're starting to have some issues because their numbers are declining and the standards that they have are substandard and the teachers that they have are moving in. So it's not just urban, but we're having issues in rural areas as well. So the TEA has to look at so many different standards. And then Sally asked something, and I think it's a combination of all. I think it's lack of education or education standards are subpar. I think also financially, they're not accountable for what they're doing. Administration, they're not doing what they should be doing. I think it's a mixture of everything.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. Now, there's two other districts that the agency announced they were closing. Mm-hmm. They're both rural and they're both under 200 students. And I really think it's two different arguments on those very small districts that just can't compete.
Yeah, Lamarque is what, about 2,500, so quite a bit bigger. Okay.